Okay, welcome everyone to our RIBA Talk 2022. I'm William So from RIBA HK. I'm the treasurer. And thank you for joining us to our RIBA Talk event today. And our topic is called Replace and Reclaim. So I can actually start the slides now. Okay. So RIBA, Royal Institute of British Architects. Basically, our Hong Kong chapter is established in 2012. We have more than 1,000 members in Hong Kong. And basically, we support our members through a series of networking opportunities. And we host a program of open house building tours, design competitions, and design forums, and also RIBA Talk at deTour. So we did quite a lot of successful events in the past few years as well. Last year we have the World Children's Day, and also we host a series of design competitions. Also we did the open house building tour, and this year we have it in Bishop Hill. And because this year actually is the 10th anniversary of RIBA Hong Kong, so we actually invited and have a series of design dialogues with Hong Kong architects and British architects, such as the Foster Partners and Zaha Hadid as well. So, of course, we also have our Part 3 graduation show. And lastly, we have our deTour talk, which we have been doing for a couple of years now. And this year, we'll be hosting our talk and inviting 6 speakers. Today, we'll be discussing our motion is replace and reclaim. So here we are. Before I'm going to actually start it, I will have a quick introductions of myself. I'll be moderating. I'm the moderator. And I'm the RIBA Hong Kong treasurer and project director from Overall Partnerships. And then on the right-hand side, we have the replace team, which is the proposition team. Our Crystal Chan from Very Hong Kong. And then second speaker, Christine from Studio Florent and Christine. And our third speaker, Wai Tang from QUAD Studio. So they will be debating for our motion, which is replaced. And then our reclaim team, sitting on my left-hand side, the opposition team, our first speaker will be Howard Chung from HIR Studio. And then our second speaker will be Suzanne Lee from O&O Studio. And Richie Wong, the third speaker from Hong Kong Timber Bank. So thank you for your participation this year. So before I quickly start the debate, I would actually just do a very quick introduction. So this year, when we have come up with the topic of reclaim and replace, we try to ask the designer to think about design as, what designers' role when we do the design. Is it something new, or is it actually a regenerative proposition? So that's why we have to have a debate today. So our theme this year from deTour, Design as One. So we kind of explore the one, is it a new beginning, or is a cyclical process, kind of like a recycling process, like cradle to cradle. And I'm thinking about design should be, inclusive, and it should be driven by community, kind of giving you have a sense of identity and belonging as well. So I would like to share one of the quotes from one of the architects, my favorite architects. He said, one of the great beauties of architecture is that each time is like a life starting all over again. So it is actually happening all around us, and I think it's actually quite inspiring. But is it, his remark is quite controversial somehow, I think, because as the world is facing the climate change crisis, how we as a designer, as a professional designer, or how are we going to design responsibly? Should we think of design as a new build, or dismissing it, or throw it away, replace, or we claim it's actually a renewable proposition? So that's two. I would like to showcase two scenarios, one for what replace and one for reclaim. So this is a first project for in Wan Chai, which I'm sure some of you might actually went there and kind of have a walk around there in Star Street. This is actually a sense of a present and past and future. And then you can naturally see there's elements of historical nature elements in there. And community's input is actually quite important. So when they do this project, they have the consultation from the public as well. And then you can actually see all the open space in enhancement, all this improvement in the railing, the lighting, to create all this little pocket space, very unique pocket space. So it's kind of like a very unique urban fabric, which kind of giving you a very strong sense of identity. Next project is Reclaim. At this very place in PMQ, you can actually see there's it used to be a police headquarters. So now it's actually adapted to a new use. So when you look at this project, you can actually see what they did to restore all this historical significance. And then you can see it's full of mixture of retailers and a great creative platform for artists, designers as well. And then what they do is they try to have, when they do the design, is the approach is devise a very minimal interventions and adopting a very flexible system to create a very vibrant and inspiring experience as well. So here, when we do the design, I think, should it be a series of new beginnings, reclaim, replace, can both be conducive to our environment? Should it be educative, innovative, environmental friendly, or maybe just meeting the market demands, fuel the consumerism and economic growth? Is it a fast food fashion? Is it a fast architecture? Is it a fast product design? The answer? So I would like to pass to my speakers to start our debate today. Thank you.
Yeah, so good night, everyone. First of all, thank you, William and our IBA for having us in this very interesting debate. So as you know, today's debate topic is replace or reclaim. And I guess at the very first impression, even the speakers ourselves may think that, hey, replace sounds like we are replacing the old stuff. We are actually going to expel the old assets and all the good things that we did in the past. And it seems like a very bad and evil word to most of the people in the first impression. But today I would like to discuss and introduce our work at Very Hong Kong to see if we can bring you a new perspective to see whether reclaim or replace, or maybe for ourselves to replace, can be a good design measure if we do with the community and really go for a good design process ourselves. So a very brief introduction about Very Hong Kong. So we are a charity that is based in Hong Kong, started in 2013. So now it's almost 9 years since we started the journey. So as an NGO, we work with the community hand in hand to realize the placemaking and public space ventures together. So ourselves is actually also from the design background. Our teammates are mainly from the architects, planning, surveyor, or some of them are community workers. So our approach, and just like everyone in the room, I guess we are all here because we all got a design aspect. And for ourselves, we are designing the community space and public space with all of them. because we see the public space as a perfect platform to bring everyone together. So regardless of everyone's gender, race, age, or even socioeconomic status, so in theory, public space we believe is a very inclusive platform that brings everyone together if we have a good design motive. So talking about replace, at the first glance, it seems like we are expelling the old stuff. But to me, I think it's more like replacing our space or replacing our community with a new meaning, a new identity, or a new function that can better serve the community, especially in this very fast-changing age. I guess a few years ago, all of us may not have imagined that the pandemic might hit us so hard. So instead of just having the parks or the very normal housing development, I guess many of us may not imagine that we are going to have so many community test stations, so all around 18 districts in Hong Kong. So this is actually one example that we are going to reflect. So if our architecture or if our design is so static and fixed, how are we going to cater for the ever-changing and very resilient community development? So that's why replace, instead of just tearing the old stuff, is how we are going to replace the new meaning and give a new identity to create collective memory that best serve the social work and social needs. So talking about some work of Ferry Hong Kong, so this photo is actually showing one of our previous events back in 2014, where the old Wan Chai Pier is going to be out of service. So instead of just tearing down the whole thing, we are actually bringing in new people. So the community members, we say, hey, why don't you do busking? Do you have other activities that you wish to do in this public space? Or for example, in 2016, instead of just having the very normal commuting, like tramway, very busy traffic, or people just bypassing the DVRC, we say, hey, why not we replace it with a new meaning and new function? So instead of just a very normal transportation mode that is quite boring and quite normal to every one of us, we are trying to redefine the spaces with the community so that everyone can actually enjoy. And instead of just having one function, we are actually bringing in the new ones to make it more happier and more matching the social needs. So in the recent 5 years, actually there is a Hong Kong policy saying that the community groups can take up vacant sites or vacant school. So most of them are actually in the new territories with the old demolishing buildings. So our approach is that we work with NGOs who have the need to take up community space. So their interests could be very diverse. For example, some of them are proposing animal shelter home. Some of them are proposing recycling station or even some arts and cultural stage. So our approach is that we talk to the villagers, we talk to the government, designer, everyone who is involved in the process, and then together we replace a new meaning and new function to it. This is a recent project that is happening in Prince Edward. I guess some of you might have been there. So 10 years ago, if you remember, there is actually an Esso petrol station just right outside the flower market. And then it is actually being taken down because of some internal stuff, I guess. The petrol station just disappeared and it becomes a very abandoned piece of land. So with a collective effort, for the previous 2 years, Ferry Hong Kong is working with a community group called the Concern for Grassroots Livelihood Alliance. And then we successfully talked to the Development Bureau and get their funding and support to launch a 5-year program that is going to revitalize the whole space into a community center that serves the grassroots and also the carer center. So this is what it is looking like now. It is just the interim period. So we are bringing in students and designers to make it look good and open up for community use. And then in the coming 3 months, there are actually going to be tenders and contractors going there to build an MIC system that is really going to look like a community center for the use for the next 4 years. So I hope this is some of the examples that we show that replace is actually going to work as long as we respond to the local needs and also bringing in everyone to join the design as one. So some advertisement. Ferry Hong Kong is actually going to have a Space Plus project that has been launched for the past past 6 months already. So our approach is also redefining and replacing and also reimagining with the community groups. For example, this is 20 NGO members from the Yunnan district. So we are giving them some skills and toolkits to do placemaking and public space imagination. And then in the coming 2 months, they will actually go to the public space and really start their placemaking venture. So I look forward to seeing you all in this, and I hope that these are some examples that could broaden your imagination to really see how we are going to replace or reclaim no matter what for the community good. So thank you.
Hello. So our site is about reclaim. So I would like to tell you a story about how we design benches with recycled plastic. Before we started, I would like to introduce my firm a little bit. We are HIR Studio. We specialize in small architectures, interior designs, and a lot of public installations, and a lot of public spaces by engaging the public to design together. So back to today's topic. When we recycle plastic, we usually do not know where the plastic will go. So this project was in Sha Tin Town Hall. And many people know that Shengmou River is the most famous place in Sha Tin. But many do not know that it's still very heavily polluted by plastic. So our idea is to collect plastic waste from the public and then recycle them and put them back into the town hall. But the process is very complicated. Maybe you can play the video and show this.
香港嘅回收率其實都幾低嘅，大概只有13%。冇回收到嘅垃圾，一係就會送到去堆填區，一係就會衝咗出去大海。
咁我自細喺沙田長大，我都見到沙田城門河嘅水質越嚟越改善，但係原來咧每日依然有好多塑膠垃圾經由城門河流咗入大海入邊。咁我哋今次就想以設計師嘅身份，親身去經歷一下，點樣可以將啲塑膠垃圾攞翻嚟回收處理咗佢，再變做一啲真係 upcycle 做一啲公共座椅俾大家用。於是就啟發咗我哋有一個取之沙田、用之沙田嘅概念。
我哋為咗呢個項目用咗2個月時間，去儲咗大概有2萬個嘅 HDPE 膠樽。呢啲膠樽都係嚟自沙田嘅。
回收廠接收到呢啲膠垃圾之後咧，會盡量再分類一次，溶咗佢，再切成一粒一粒嘅再生原料。每一張長凳咧都由一件一件嘅組件拼合而成，每個組件嘅形狀係一樣，但係旋轉嘅角度唔同。我哋用同一個模具做咗幾百件一模一樣嘅組件，每一張凳都以不鏽鋼嘅鋼枝貫穿，構造好簡單，物料亦都好純粹。好多年之後咧，依然可以好輕易咁樣回收，再次重塑成新嘅產品。呢張凳嘅靈感嚟自沙田嘅城門河，沙田居民每日嘅生活都圍繞咗喺河畔。我哋設計大會堂嘅室內設施嘅時候，期望市民可以感受到城門河帶嚟嘅親切感。嚟到大會堂就好似去到河邊一樣咁自然。組件旋轉嘅時候構成咗起伏，就好似河面水波嘅翻騰咁樣，亦都好自然咁營造出悠閒嘅私人空間。好多時大家回收完啲膠咧都唔知拎咗去邊，就希望大家市民嚟到沙田大會堂，親眼見到自己努力去清潔回收翻嚟嘅成果，唔單止可以見到啦，可以摸到，更加可以坐到上去，咁就更加有動力去做下一次嘅回收。 But I will tell you guys more interesting stories behind the scene. So after we collect the waste, we have to chop them down into little pellets, right? So we send them into different recycling factories in Hong Kong, and then send them to China to make the products. It turns out that many of the pellets did not work, and it's either too fluffy or they are too weak. What's the reason of that? It turns out that the plastic waste in Hong Kong were not well sorted, and when there are many impurities in the pellets, they cannot be made into good products. And we found out that there's actually no specific guidelines on the quality of the exported recycled plastic. Although they look the same, but the chemical properties, no people really look after that. So it turns out that many of the recycled plastic waste were not recycled. But we want to do something about it. We want to make at least the benches to be recyclable if they are not fully recycled from the plastic waste. So we added some virgin plastic, we have to make it work. In the end, we deliver them. So we architects or designers, we do not only draw the designs, but we kind of connect different parties in the recycling industry, like the volunteers who collect the waste, and government bodies who look after the qualities, and the recycling factories who chop them down, and then the furniture companies in China who help to manufacture them. So our role has become a connection. So what's next? We have some more projects like that. After that, some private clients ask us to do a lot of related projects. So what we designers can do, we can offer new solutions. We do not just based on assumptions to design. We connect different parts in the community. And actually, one important advantage of recycling is that it raises the sense of belonging in the community, because during the process of recycling and by explaining the public how the recycle work, and by letting the public appreciate the products or the furnitures, or later the interior designs or architecture, people will be interested, and people will join you to participate in the design process. I think that's a very good way to let everyone has a recycling mindset and to help recycle together. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello. Thank you, Howard. I think it's a very transparent process we just see. Very interesting to see. Thank you. So we have our next speakers from Studio Florian and Christine. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Christine, co-founder of Studio Florian and Christine, and I'm on the replace side of this debate. And I think Crystal made a really great point that replace doesn't sound very good. It sounds like we're just going to continue to use up things and not really care. But I think if we're really honest with ourselves, like this consumerist behavior is very much embedded in the way that we live as individuals and also as a whole. So if that is truly the case, I think we almost need to lean in to this idea of, okay, if this is truly how we will continue to consume goods and products, like I don't think that's going to go away, then how do we become smart about when we create products? Then we need to really look at how to close that loop really smart and efficiently and clean as well. And I would say as an example, if you look at reusable metal straws, we thought that was going to be the big game changer, like that's going to reduce straw waste. But like raise of hands, who last week used a reusable straw versus last week did you use a biodegradable straw that you threw away? And it's going to be, I'm assuming it's going to be, well, for myself as well, the biodegradable straw, because we like convenience. So I guess with this in mind, I'll share a few case studies of different research projects that we've been looking into as a studio. And yep, so we're a two-person led multidisciplinary design studio based in Hong Kong. And we've mainly been looking at local waste materials, specifically plastic and also glass. And lastly, waste milk, actually. I come from a material innovation background, and Florian, my design partner, comes from an industrial design background. And we focus, as talked about, sustainable materials, heritage craft, and also social innovation, which we define as working with people of different disciplines and also of generations, and to come together to create new design dialogues and ways of making. Our first project here in Hong Kong actually is called the Hong Kong Harbor Future Seacraft, funded by a Design Trust grant, where we looked at local waste plastics found along the shores. And we also, went through a lot of different collection and noticed it was really tedious to collect everything, sort it through. And that's one of the big challenges with upcycling plastic. And so then we ended up focusing on one type of plastic, PP plastic, which is mainly the water bottles. And we did a lot of different material testings, whether it's just melting it down into different tiles, and also the terrazzo method. And we also worked with rust metals that we found for silk rust dyeing. And we also collaborated with local craftsmen to kind of create different molds or the metal parts for our final designs. And we also worked, this was an ambitious project. Well, we just were so excited to explore all that Hong Kong has to offer. And so we also wanted to touch on neon light making, which is obviously a disappearing craft. So in the end, we created a small collection of modern furniture that showcases a lot of the heritage craft and also local waste materials that we upcycled into these neon lamps, these screens where the tiles are created from the upcycled plastic, and also this room divider with a rust-dyed silk panel. So in order to continue this research, we focused on this project called Tai-O Light, where I guess our main focus is what is heritage craft innovation and what does that really mean to us. And we won the Mills Fabrica Grand Prize, which allowed us to continue this research. And in order to really honor this place that we are based in, Hong Kong, we wanted to focus on its fishing routes. So we went to Tai-O to really speak with the fishermen and learn about their heritage craft that's very much dying out today. But in order to establish the innovation side, we're also curious, well, how can it be made more relevant into today's modern design? And how can we ultimately create this like hybrid design outcome that looks at the old and the new? So this is us going to Tai-O, looking at the different fishing nets, working with the local fishermen. We're lucky to find this fisherman that was willing to teach us personally how to do the fishnet weaving. This is me struggling, learning, but it was a really fun process, and I love being, so close to a craftsman to learn this like dyeing craft. And so for then the innovation part, we were doing material research, and we found this 3D printing fiber that's made from 100% recycled nylon fishnets made in England. And we decided to kind of work and test with this material, although it's really hard to 3D print with since it's a recycled material. And then we kind of ended up creating this light. And we landed on this form because not only when we went to Tai-O during the Lantern Festival, we also noticed that a lot of the fishing buoys has this similar kind of bead-like shape. So we wanted to kind of recreate this form that we kept seeing. And also we put the fishing nets that we hand wove ourselves on the outside of the light. So this is kind of the final outcome, or the hybrid outcome that we were hoping for. And lastly, this is our most recent project called Reimagining the Chinese Zodiac, and it's also through Design Trust. And it was a commission for the Hong Kong Palace Museum. So there was this project that was done in the 90s, which was also about recreating the Chinese zodiac. And then for this project, we were asked, well, as the new generation, how do we redesign these animals? And we were given the goat animal. And we decided to then really look at, well, what does the goat how does that relate to humanity now? And through research, we noticed that the goat is the first domesticated animal. And also it provides a lot of food, not only in its milk, but also cheese. So we decided we wanted to work directly with goat's milk. And we were really inspired by, since this is in the context of the Hong Kong Palace Museum, so we looked at, how does milk how was it used in the Asian region to create, and they created not necessarily cheese, but like different curds. And also through this process, we learned that we could extract this protein called casein, which was used to create a bioplastic. So kind of from all this different research, it made us do a lot of different material testing, and we're able to create this like clay-like material that can be casted, we call it casein clay, and we use a lot of food-inspired processes like the rolling, the marbling, and the piping to then create a final outcome. And we weren't sure like what we wanted to do as the final form, but we realized like if it is truly food-inspired, then I think the object that makes the most sense is a bowl. So then in the end, we created this bowl from this casein clay material that's 100% biodegradable and even edible, but I don't think it tastes good. And it's currently shown at the Hong Kong Palace Museum. So yeah, that's us.
Thank you, Christine. Very sensational, when we can actually see that. Thank you. So our next speaker, Suzanne Lee.
Hello, everyone. Is it working? Hello, I'm Suzanne from ONO Studio. So today I'm in the opposition team regarding replace, and also reclaim. So what is reclaim? Reclaim is, in a simple word, is to treasure or bring back an item or materials from the past to a condition that can be used in its new state. We extend its lifespan rather than starting fresh. Is this the correct way to go? In today's world, with shortage of material, shortage of time to appreciate, shortage of connection with the nature, possibly reclaim is the way forward to be more sustainable physically and emotionally. As I said, reclaim can be done in physical form to address and fulfill a community need. There's a story in every piece, and that everyone treasure about. So why not extend its life and reclaim the memory of the neighborhood? We have done a project. In this project, it took place in the site that once was a public estate in North Point, but now it has become a private development, quite a high-end one, with somehow unreachable values in terms of sort of the money value, with a lot of empty apartments. Is this the right way to go? And what is there to be left for the locals? Perhaps is this little student chair from the Java Road primary school, which has already been closed down with the estate. We collected it, upcycled it with a touch of fun, sort of mimicking our sort of kiddie habits of rocking in your classroom, in your school, which was prohibited. It was donated to us by a shop owner in the wet market next door. He rescued this chair from the demolished site for his daughter to use in his shop. So some would probably see this as a trash, but some actually can see the story behind that it carries the history of the community, actually possibly the history of Hong Kong too, in the urban context. It is also a buddy of the little girl with his father. It is a piece of treasure that actually it doesn't go to the landfill. So in this project, we collected over 50 pieces of furniture donated to us from the neighborhood, so equal to our teammates, where we collect all the unusable or unwanted pieces from the community. We upcycle them with a touch of fun and aesthetics, and then we put back to the community for them to use. Some with very sounding stories and extraordinary history behind. So these were upcycled and returned to the community in the new look. It is not just fulfilling the need of the Kai Phong for the public space, but also because of the history of the story behind, it connects people across generations through the installations. We were visiting the site, there were families bringing kids, grandparents over, that they were talking about their histories and the stories of the families when they see such a piece. So it was very well received as a project and highly occupied 24/7, with Kai Phong spending hours in there. We see people sleeping on one of the rocking chairs overnight, possibly because of the area, which is better than at home. There were people fishing, resting, and chit-chatting. So apart from physically, to my desire actually, spiritually, in a form to sort of reclaim the memories or habits of someone or of a city, is actually also possible. Reclaiming a habit in a city which has been forced to omit through the new way of planning. So this project took place in Shanghai. People in Shanghai actually spent hours outside of their home in the old Shanghai neighborhood for just chit-chat or mahjong for various reasons. But it has been not so easy or possible in the new way of planning in the city. Okay, so. So with this project of mine, it seeks to provide locals with a simple place to stop and inhabit in the cold context in the city right now. Also to offer the potential for dialogues with the built environment as well as themselves among the community. So to a personal level, reclaiming moments of life, you can play with the structure, and it is so flexible that you can alter to suit the situations. And also to a city level, it reclaims the life of a city, also a habit of the community. So to me, reclaim can be in any form. It can be physically done or spiritually done, extending the lifespan to avoid and reduce carbon impact. However, it does not mean any compromising on aesthetics or spatial quality. It can be done very nicely with a touch of sensation too. So what is the value of reclaim? It can be testing and engaging with the new, as well as being a context that has all the memories in it. So to conclude, we at the ONO studio that we do architecture projects as well as interior projects. Also, we're very keen in doing those placemaking that has a reclaimed sense of portion in it. Thank you.
Thank you, Suzanne. It's kind of like a very good message to kind of remind us reclaim can be in a form of newness as well, right? So I'll pass the microphone to the next speaker, Wai Tang, representing Replace team as well from the QUAD Studio.
Hello, my name is Wai Tang, and I'm going to talk about Replace. I'm going to talk about this in terms of architectural and master planning point of view. So here I would like to start with what I want to know what is Reclaim. Reclaim is about regenerative. This is in Shugang, which is a steel mill, and it's changed into a Shangri-La hotel, basically. So it's basically a function put into an existing building. If you look at here, the whole idea about reclaiming is about renew, restore, and revitalizing, changing the space into something else. And a thing that Heatherwick did very well is that creating this mill into this kind of beautiful space for people to congregate. And some very good examples of reclaim is the Central Police Station by MDRDB and Herzog Boron. And I think it is very good how actually people use these existing buildings and make it something else. Another one is Battersea. And all these examples is basically from form to program. And the thing is that what if the program doesn't exist, doesn't actually fit into the form? So if you look at some examples of this happening, is if you look at Foster and they look at the Hong Kong Bank, they tried very hard to use the existing building in their design. But eventually, they couldn't do it. At the end, they created a completely new building. So basically, what the Hong Kong Bank wanted was to have their functions into the bank, new functions. And the only way to do it is to replace. And another thing, it's always a Foster building, I'm sorry. It's Wembley Stadium, because it's the World Cup. I want to talk about Wembley Stadium and how, and again, in terms of, if you look at the existing Wembley and the new building, it's like it's twice as big. So in a way, they try to retain some parts of the existing Wembley, but they can't, because basically the program exceeds the form, basically. So what happens if the form cannot be put into the program? It means you have to replace. So why do I talk about this? I like to talk about this because we know a little bit about the future. In terms of the world's population, 50% of the world's population live in cities. That's 3.5 billion people. That's a lot of people. And it comes to a time where the city doesn't really work with anymore. The idea of living in a suburb and working in the city. So the whole thing creates congestion. So in terms of a master program, Radiant City is a wrong way of actually doing this, because Le Corbusier had this brilliant idea of creating these skyscrapers and having a lot of land. But the problem here was the fact is he segregated all the functions in different areas, which create dead spots. And then it creates crime. So basically, how would he know? It wasn't done before. It's revolutionary. So the city has to be mixed. So how kind of mixed should it be? In terms of live, work, play, it has to coincide together. In terms of how it should do, it should be efficient as well, so that most of the functions should be no more than 5 to 10 minutes away. As well as that, it has to be sustainable, and it has to be entertaining as well. So what I look at is like, here is a project I've been working for the past 10 years. And if you look at on the left-hand side, it's urban squalor. On the right-hand side, it's something that we revived. And we actually create a lot of public realm for people to congregate and to interact. And this is another one. This is Super HQ. This is rethinking the complete city altogether. It's like dividing it into sections where the whole kind of infrastructure is underneath and allows for a lot of people and vehicles to be alleviated from the functionality. So in a way, what I'm looking at is in terms of an infrastructure hub, where all the services are put into it. And the only way you can actually do it is to replace. And why am I talking about this? Because in 2030, China will be producing twice as much rubbish as the US. So how do we actually tackle this? We have to do this by waste collecting all the waste we can, and use gasification to actually gasify 95% of all the rubbish, and create that into a reusable energy. With this in mind, you can actually district cool the whole of the city, and enough to do a lot of public lighting and everything as well. So the whole idea here, it has to be wrong to replace? I think as long as you are sustainable, ecological, replace is a good idea, especially with what we are looking at in the future. And this is a new reality. This is done by David Green, my tutor. The whole idea here was like 1926, the fax was created. In 1993, the SMS, the first SMS was created. But look at this. In 2 years, 2002, 2004, 2006, all these different types of social media comes along. It means that technology is advancing very, very quickly. And the only way you can actually do this is to replace and rethink. I think that there's a lot of good ideas out there and how to actually re-evolve and look at the city and rethink is to replace. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Wai Tang. Very, very strong argument from the Replace team as well. So our next speakers, Richie Wong from Hong Kong Timber Bank. Thank you.
My test. I'm almost being convinced to replace. Hello everyone, I'm Richie from Hong Kong Timber Bank, Hong Kong Mok Fu, and we started practice 3 years ago after Typhoon Manhood, and it was actually, as a design profession, actually we do a lot of replacement, and we started to do reclaimed woods as a new term, and then we realized actually there are so huge amounts of wood being landfilled every year, which is almost 80,000 cubic meter per year going to landfill. And what we have done, we started the business and then we started to collect this wood and try to think and try to learn how to use this wood and make them into different kind of products by doing from recycling and sorting and sawmilling and all the wood process that did not exist in Hong Kong. So we try to design with these materials into different types of projects which people would be able to touch and feel the original trees that grow in our area. This is a field project that we had been doing this year. This is in Sai Kung Yim Tian Ji, and the previous one is actually the recent one in Dong Chong City Gate, which is a 10-meter long bench using the wood claimed from Lantau Island itself. And this is from the Yim Tian Ji Island, and then we brought the wood back to our factory, process it, doing a staycation in our factory, and come back in a new total image, and put it back in the original home. This is a one-chai one in the promenade, and this is in Causeway Bay, a 4-meter long trunk of an acacia tree. Another recent one in Swire, we do the planter, and one of the very interesting things there is on the right hand side of the photo, it is actually a recycling center, which you can put the food waste, turn it into composite, and put into this planter and grow plants in the planter. So everything come into one place as a recycling facility, and would become a musical instrument, which actually in the entire world there are only 2 materials making musical instruments, the metal and also wood. So this wood could actually generate sound, or you call it music. Nowadays we do the gambling for jockey club, and you do it like a manting, and you got to like raise like a manting, and exterior projects, facades for constructions, and all these are coming from trees that are grown in our neighborhood. I would actually, yes, we call it reclaimed wood, because actually they are woods that grow in our neighborhood, including the tree outside in our PMQ. Hopefully it doesn't come to our factory. If it happens, never mind. It becomes restaurants, bar table becomes utilities that we can have in our general living environment, or even utensils. As a matter of fact, we think the tree has a lot of opportunities to get involved in our daily life, from raw materials into projects, or even into kind of retail furniture we can make into. And further that, what we have been doing in our company, we actually collect all these different types of species of wood, and we try to test the carbon content from different species and try to know about them. And with that, what we are going to do is to try to plant. So we had a charity built for this purpose. We wish to try to plant trees which can absorb more carbon dioxide for our next generation, based on the knowledge that we understand from these South Asian trees. And in fact, for me, it's no longer about reclaimed wood anymore. It's not about not only just reclaim, because actually the wood gave us a new life of energy and material as a kind of inspiration to design, but in fact it starts to relink ourselves and to the nature, and also we link everyone in the society, the community, through the use of this particular material to each other. So we talk about wood, we have a table in front of us. It kind of link up everyone. I think the debate here tonight is somehow very interesting. We designers actually, we had kind of proposition against reclaim or replace. But actually, the idea come to us, and actually it can elaborate into very many different ways, but all it comes the same. That is meaningful as a design language or strategy to us. But in fact, all these come to one point. It's actually relinking everyone into one as a main feature of our event tonight. Where's the organizer? So design is one. So we had the kind of agenda in our mind, or responsibility in our mind, our duty actually to link up people together and link up the society together through different strategies. So I think, yeah, we can change the topic tonight during the meeting. So yeah, that's my presentation, and I hope we can start another section. We can try to discuss on the topic. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Richie. I think it's actually a very strong ideas that actually we, on both sides, even for designer, for every one of us, we should adopt this kind of mindset, even in our daily life, when we're using our daily life products, bottles, or we have to kind of have this sort of responsibility to help our environment to be a better environment. So I think we should start engaging our audience to take a vote. So definitely we need to have a vote before our Q&A. So let's see who would like to vote on our replace team on the right-hand side. Please put your hands up to let us know. Yeah, replace. Okay, let's count. Wow, not bad. Wow, not bad. Okay, who would like to vote for our reclaim team, recycling team? Whoa. 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Well, it's 2 hands, 11. Wow, that's 11 against 11. Thank you. But guess what? We're going to have another round of votes because let's make it more exciting. We have 7 minutes of Q&A from the public audience. So we would have to, after the Q&A, in the Q&A, you could actually specifically ask our speakers, and then we will have our representative from each team to have a final conclusion and or a remark on your team, yeah? So I will pass the microphone to our audience. Who would like to ask our speakers or even our any question? Okay.
Sorry.
Thank you, Rafina.
Hello, I'm Rufina. I'm also a committee member with William. Thank you, William, for organizing it, first of all. And really a big applause to all the speakers. Completely agree with Richie, whether it's replace or reclaim. What I saw right through was the respect for virgin material, respect for virgin innovations. So that's important as designers to whether we reclaim or replace or whatever we do, giving a new interpretation, a meaningful interpretation, and really engaging with whether it fits the purpose. So that is so much of what I saw as a continuing understanding of trying to justify. So when it comes to reclaim, I'm a big advocate of sustainability. My whole life work is about sustainability, teaching, research, everything is about sustainability. I mean, having said that, I really respect everything I saw here today, and really going into the core understanding of how we reduce landfill waste, how we reduce the burden on virgin material and then forest and everything. So yes, a huge appreciation for that. Being a researcher on pretty much on this side of the spectrum, I always question whether we can justify the carbon footprint of the reclamation process. So that's something I haven't quantified myself in my research, like whether sending it to the landfill and processing there, what is the carbon footprint there, and then sending it to the reclamation process, and then all this refinement that would also incur some of the carbon footprint, right? So I don't have an answer myself. I haven't done any quantification, but I think even if we keep that aside, what I see is that the new life that you guys are giving, the new meaning that you guys are giving, and then, as you rightly said, the connections that you're making, the knowledge, the new knowledge base that you're making, right? If it ended up in the landfill, that part will be gone. You don't generate new knowledge, you don't generate new creativity, you don't generate any new alliances, right? So that's where I think, okay, let's forget about the carbon footprint, but there is something coming up. Right? And again, yes, hats off to you guys as well. Looking at, I mean, are we just going to, for the sake of keeping something, just forego the program, the needs of the future for another 30, 40 years to go, right? So yes, I don't have really a conclusion myself, but I thoroughly enjoyed and I learned a lot from the process. So yes, thank you so much from the chapter, and I assume the audience learned something. Yeah, it's not a question though. Okay, all right.
Thank you, Rafina. I myself probably want to ask a question for both the teams. Well, I think as as a designer, or probably as any sort of any professional, or even would it be a new innovative approach that actually, or mechanism, like you said, to actually quantify the carbon footprint to your approach? So this approach, whether it's a replace or reclaim, I think this is somehow should be a mechanism, and that mechanism should be able to tell us, is it able to actually let the audience know, or let the community know, or let the end user know, to know that if it's the most suitable or appropriate design. So I would like to know what is your thought about on this. Let's say.
I think we can go back to 100 years ago, before industrialization. Before that happened, we only make our own homemade noodles in your own hometown. You have no quantity at all, but you have all the quality works in a bowl of noodle when you make it. And you spend really less energy. But once the industrialization happens, then you have a factory and you have to make a new quantity and consume energy in order to compensate for the investment, right? That applies to everything that henceforth. And the idea of reclaim or replace actually happened only after the industrialization. And we are talking about the energy consumption and all that. We have to stop that. We have to replace a new idea, and we generate a new model of creation and material generation. And if we are doing the recycling, actually it's the methodology that we are doing, and by means of like plastic regeneration, whether or not actually collecting plastic consumes more energy, I think it's a process, because actually we are going to generate biodegradable plastic in the future, maybe 100% degradable one mask that I'm wearing. That is actually plant-based and zero plastic. So it's a generation, it's a process that we have to go through before we reach to a point where this is net zero or carbon negative. And in terms of wood, actually they are, because they are growing mechanism that absorb carbon dioxide. And if we throw it to the landfill, and actually we release everything to them. And for buildings, if possible, if we can generate a city purely on timber, then actually it's carbon negative for sure if the forest is actually localized. And you do not chop down the forest in South America and ship it across Asia and then put it in a new city. Then it's carbon negative. For the agenda behind us is talking about how much tons of carbon that can be absorbed and grow into trees and put into architecture of a 40-story high buildings without doing anything negative, steel and concrete. Although now we claim that there are zero carbon concrete nowadays, but actually they are doing offset. But actually the material itself is not negative at all. But by doing so, it's the process that we have to try to claim for, or to replace with a new technology or strategy. I think the process we have to go through in any case. So I think it's the newest trend. Right now we are in the position of the society. We have to think about ESG. You have to talk to the landlord that you have to pay for ESG. You have to pay for the price that you are establishing anything that is on earth. So this is my stand. Thank you.
In terms of replace. It's basically, there's no right or wrong. When I was conjuring up the PowerPoint, there are lots of areas where we can reclaim. And there are spaces are beautiful and can be redone. But in a way, I was looking at a bigger picture. If we're looking at the society and humanity, it's getting bigger and bigger. And how do we actually make the city more sustainable? I assume that in the next 50 years or less, the city will be unusable. Because there's so many people there, everybody wants to live in the city. And the whole idea here was to think about how are we going to live in the future. And by doing that, we have to rethink the city. So here, what we're looking at is basically, there is already a pilot. Garden by the Bay uses gasification, and they are completely off-grid. They burn a lot of the dead wood and dead things in the forest, and basically what they actually burn reuse in terms of energy, and they create electricity and air conditioning. So the whole kind of biomes inside Gardens by the Bay are all done by reusable energy. So in terms of a bigger picture, if we use this idea in a city and minimize the idea of rubbish becoming put into the landfill and used for recyclable and using that as a reusable energy, it's worth exploring. Whether it is a rethinking of a city or using it in terms of a pilot scheme, we need to do this kind of innovation to actually move forward in society and to create a more ecological world that we live in.
Thank you, Wai Tang. Thank you. I think it's, both have a very strong argument. And I would say it's definitely a draw for all the audience. Thank you. And thank you for your participation. And thank you for coming to our events and listening to our talk. Cheers. Thank you.